Welcome back. In this lesson, I want to talk about the three primary ways we communicate, or people prefer to communicate. So each of us does have a preference to learn and communicate, and often we're a combination of two or sometimes even all three. However, we all have one in particular that dominates the way we learn and communicate. So as I go through this lesson, I want you to think about which one most closely describes you. Remember, we're working in this module on discovering more about yourself, because when you have an understanding about who you are, it's a lot easier to relate to people who are like you, obviously, but also to understand how to better communicate with people who are not share the same kind of personality and or communication style as you. So first, visual. Visual people need to see it. They speak generally more rapidly. They think others are slow. Visual people tend to be a little bit more rapid, and they clearly want to see everything. They're generally sharing first, and they'll be all about seeing that you're there, where an auditory person needs to hear it. An indicator that you might be with an auditory person is they may cock their head or tap their fingers or foot. That is a good indication that you're working with someone who prefers to process things auditorially. They speak in a moderate pace, neither fast nor slow, but steadily. They're generally going to share seconds, and they want to be heard as opposed to seen, like a visual person. And then kinesthetic folks, they need to touch it, feel it, work with their hands. They're going to be more sort of laid back, speaking more slowly. They think others are too fast and quick. They have a tendency to share last, and they want to feel connected. Kinesthetic people are all about their feelings. So I want you to take a look at the graph that we have here, and a couple other things that will help be indicators for you as to whether a person is a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic person. So on the one side of the chart, you're going to see how they breathe. And then for visual, it's more high in the chest. Auditory person breathes a little bit more in the middle of their chest, and a kinesthetic person is in the low stomach. And you'll even see, if you're in person, you can pick up on these things, by the way, on the phone, obviously in a Zoom, and clearly when you're face to face. But kinesthetic people tend to be back a little bit more, and let's take a look at the weight of where they stand. So a visual person, again, is more rapid paced, right? So they're may going to be putting their weight on the ball of their foot, where an auditory person is kind of more balanced midfoot. And a kinesthetic person is literally on their heels and a little bit more leaning back. Their vocabulary, as I mentioned, is kind of high speed, quicker for visual, auditory, more mid-range, and very slow and measured for a kinesthetic person, right? So as I mentioned, the other things that I mentioned are here on this chart as well. So let's walk through these dialogues now, okay? Because this is such a great, I just want you to listen. And as I go through these examples of how you could change the tone, the language, the words that you choose if you're working with a visual, auditory, or a kinesthetic person, I just want you to listen to the dialogue, the close, if you will, the script, and see which one appeals to you. These are all ways for you to sort of pick up, are you visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? And by the way, most people are visual. 70-75% of the population is more visual, and the others fall into the other two categories, okay? So you're going to run into mostly visual people. So here's the first one. Just sit back and listen. There is a house which I'm sure you would like to see. The first house is in a beautiful neighborhood and is very picturesque. Even the doorbell has a unique design. You'll certainly see for yourself that the rooms appear large and have the right colors. If you go to the balcony, you can see some really nice scenery. I'm sure you'll perceive this as an excellent choice. All right? Let's compare that now to auditory again. Which one appeals to you the most? Yet there is another house that I'm sure you would like to hear about. This second house is in a quiet neighborhood and is of a very sound construction. Even the doorbell has a nice tone. You'll certainly say to yourself that the rooms are large and have the right tones. If you go to the balcony, you can hear the birds chirping and the sound of the breeze. I'm sure you'll tell yourself this is an excellent choice. All right, and last one, kinesthetic. There is one more house that I'm sure you would find satisfying. This third house is in a warm neighborhood and is very solidly built. Even the doorbell gives a welcome feeling. you'll certainly sense that the rooms are spacious and have the touch. If you go to the balcony, you can feel the warm sun and a light breeze. I'm sure you'll feel that this is an excellent choice. So there it is, right? If you can see the nuances of just simply changing word choices that would appeal to someone who's more visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. We're actually getting into a little bit of NLP right here in this lesson, but I wanted to be able to talk about this, and we'll come back full circle with it. And finally, for this 3 ways people prefer to communicate lesson, we've included a chart that just has common words and phrases that you can take a look at to start listening for, if you will, or watching and feeling and sensing. So you just start to use these words. It's pretty powerful. So you'll get a sense of the words choices people will use will sometimes indicate if they're visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, and it's pretty straightforward, right? So there's a bit of a guide there for you. So that's the 3 communication styles, primary. There's actually more to this. There's a 4th type, but just for our purposes in this Sales Builder program, these are the 3 primary ones. So join me in the next lesson and we'll jump into the DISC profile.